Welcome to the Gateless Podcast. I'm really glad that you're here. I'm your host, Kara Carews. This is where you'll find conversations with self-made women who share their playbooks, their tips, their actual experiences on the journey to success. I also chat with experts and practitioners of mindset, stress, productivity, emotional, and mental health, because if you're listening to this, you're somebody that bets boldly on yourself and you care about optimizing how you feel, perform, give back, love, and just move through the world. This podcast is here to help you become the absolute most incredible version of yourself in life and in business. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. We really appreciate your feedback and reviews. The only way that we grow right now is from you sharing your favorite episodes with your family and friends on social media. So thank you for doing that. Go do that big, cool thing that you've been dreaming about today. I sat down with Courtney Crowder, who is part owner and partner at Phoenix Lending Group. We chat about making big career moves, buying your first home, betting on yourself, the importance of relationships and networking to build a career from scratch, literally from starting at zero. Courtney shares her journey from extremely humble beginnings in a rural city in Virginia and how she navigated through various career paths to now this point of independence and really impressive success. She has this I'm not going to fail, I can't fail, I'm going to figure it out attitude that is truly inspiring to me, and I know will be to you. She opens up about all of the challenges that she faced, making risky career moves, cutting off relationships, and shrinking her inner circle when the people around her weren't actually bettering her and up-leveling her. She became a mother pretty young and navigated motherhood, building a career, becoming a partner at a firm, all with grace. And of course, there's learnings there. And she shares very, very tangible and actionable tips. She also talks about how to become a first-time homeowner if you are a single woman, and shares a playbook for how you can really navigate that with the right mindset and also how to prioritize the steps in which you do things. Whether you are making big moves on your path to financial freedom, you want to become a homeowner, you are also coming from a place where not many people in your family or the people that you grew up with are doing what you want to do and aspire to be, this episode is packed with tangible tips to help you along your journey. If that's you, then this episode is for you. And with that, welcome, Courtney. Could you just share a little bit about yourself and what you're doing now? And we'll get into all the details of the background and all that, but let's hear what you're working on right now and just tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
So I am a broker owner of Phoenix Lending Group. I just became a partner a few weeks ago. It was the beginning of February. So super, super exciting. It's something that I knew I always wanted, but kind of whenever I was thinking about what I was going to say here, it's so funny whenever you're back up all the way to beginning in the career, where you want to go, but you don't see the clear path.
Totally.
So it was really exciting to enter into this chapter, and honestly enter into it relatively quickly because I started in mortgage in 2018. So it's not been, an incredible amount of time that I've been in the industry, but hustled hard and I've made the right connection. So it's worked out.
It is really impressive, and hustle is part of it, of course, but there's so much more that I'm sure, like a lot more strategy that went into it than just hustle. So I want to hear about it. But can we go back to just sharing a little bit about your background and upbringing and how you even started? Like, you can do a quick summary of just where you started in life and a little bit about how you started your career. Because you were doing something different, right, at the beginning?
Well, kind of. Okay. So we both know we majored in business together, and I always had an affinity for finance. I thought I was going to go to New York and work as a finance gal in New York whenever I was post grad. And so fortunately for me, I had Sweet Tucker and relocated here to Phoenix, Scottsdale. So when I first moved here, I worked in marketing, and that just really wasn't the thing for me. I am much more analytical. I was running reports on the analytics of everything, and that's really wasn't even my role. So I stepped back and was a stay-at-home mom for like 18 months. During that time, I opened numerous LLCs. I did all kinds of crazy stuff. And I was like, I can't be still. I need to do more. So
Mhm.
Trevor's dad and I started applying to every mortgage company that would take my application. And I ended up getting a job at this really small startup, and I worked at the front desk. I literally worked at the front desk of this place and kind of worked into doing more of a processing role,
Mhm.
and then from the processing role, did the sales. And then I ended up being a key employee for this company. I was doing all of the new agent recruitment for referral. I was doing HR. Strangely, you know me, I'm not a rule following type of gal. So that was very fun.
Amazing.
And so I realized how undercompensated I was in that role for how much I was doing. So one of my girlfriends and I actually started our own thing, but then 2020 hit and we just did not have the capacity for the volume of business that we were receiving, which was a great problem to have, but also really challenging and friendship dynamic because how do
Mm.
we move this? What do we do? And that's when I started working with my partner now and had, I mean, just absolutely incredible mentorship from him. He was fantastic, truly like a blessing to me in my life. And then after a little bit of time, he decided he was going to take a year sabbatical.
Mm.
So it happened to fall in the worst time in mortgage history other than maybe 2008. And somehow I still kept my production. So he comes back and he's like, I'm ready to go just start my own company and we're going to leave this bigger institution. And something in my gut just said, no, I'm not going. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to continue to stay in what's called retail lending, where you have big overarching company and smaller branches. And I joined a friend of mine at a branch, and it wasn't the place for me and my clients. But leaving Tom, my partner now, made us both realize the value we had in each other and what a perfect synergetic partnership we had together. So leaving was ultimately the best thing, even though it wasn't necessarily the best place for me to be. So we re-engaged and started conversations about how this would look for a partnership. And I came on in October, understanding that the ultimate goal was to be partner. But, you want to kind of date before you get married. So we took a little bit of time and, structuring that, really going through the process of a strong operating agreement. And that's ultimately how that happened.
That's amazing. So, a few things that you said were kind of lending themselves to the fact that you always had an entrepreneurial spirit. Like you just
Yeah.
decided that you and your friend were going to start your own thing. Can
Yeah.
you say more about that? Maybe say more about the entrepreneur inside of you. And
Yeah.
that isn't necessarily the same as wanting to go be a finance girl on Wall Street in New York. And to be totally honest, that is exactly what I thought I was going to do leaving college as well. And like I got the
Really.
job at Morgan Stanley and I moved to do it and I quit after
Mhm.
3 months because I hated it so much. I'm like, this is not me. This is this is not me. What am I doing? I don't want to climb some ladder here. And it was
Totally.
because of that inner entrepreneur that I just needed to figure out how to feed. So,
Absolutely. Yes, I'm 100% there with you. And being in those cycles of essentially feeling underpaid, undervalued, and having to climb the ladder and constantly prove worth, like that has never resonated with me, nor have
yeah,
the roles that I was just talking about before. It's some things that don't make sense to me. I just can't do it. Like if it doesn't make sense, I can't do it. And there's so many nuances
totally.
and performance reviews and things that ultimately just didn't resonate with me as a human. I saw what I could do if I operated with more autonomy, and that's where I always wanted to be, even whether I knew it or not.
Well, and you've also had I don't even know how to describe this, but kind of a I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it my way mentality and like trust me, it's going to work out kind of thing. And it feels like that holds true with
Mhm.
what you've done professionally too. Like, okay, I get that there's a playbook for this, or I get that there's a path, but guess what? I'm going to do it my way
Yeah.
because that's authentic to me and it's going to work. Do you have, I don't know how conscious or subconscious that is to you, but do you have some way that you
I
find and
don't know.
maintain the confidence to do that? Like, is it just confidence in yourself that you've always had, or did it come from something? Or I want to hear more about that.
It's a really good question because I truly have always had that, and I don't know what it is. I took an Enneagram test, and it said I was an Enneagram 7, and we are like crazy optimistic, even like a little bit
Delusional, if you might say.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so even like having Tucker in college, I was just like, this is going to be fine. Like everything's going to be okay. It's all going to work out. I just had this belief in myself that I would navigate it. And ultimately, even going to college from, my family's lineage was something that no one else had done. So I just always believed it would happen. And then it just does. So yeah, a little Delulu conservative girl.
I completely agree. I think it's hard sometimes for people to understand exactly what that is, though. And I think to break it down, it's really just a confidence in yourself that you know you're going to do it. And it doesn't mean you have to have the exact steps laid out. It's just a
Yeah,
feeling of,
totally.
I believe if somebody else could do this, I can do this. Is that
Right.
right?
And success is never linear. Like, I
No.
don't know about you, but for me, it's not going like this. Like every time that something would happen, that would be a little bit of setback. There's something in me also that was fueled by that. Like anytime something happened, it was like, well, I'm going to go do something bigger and better, bigger and better, bigger and better every single time.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Are there moments in your life that you can recall or pinpoint as pivotal moments? Maybe they were challenges, maybe they weren't challenges, but just pivotal moments that got you closer to who you actually are.
Yeah. So that very first mortgage company I worked for, I alluded to being underpaid and honestly undervalued for what I was doing. I was doing a heck of a lot for them. And I could see because I had insight into the business operation, what I was bringing in and the actual revenue that this was generating. So I didn't come to them and ask for a raise based on an arbitrary number. I came based on facts and data and truly seeing my value. And their nod to me wasn't explicitly said this way, but more or less said, can't your husband or your father take care of you?
Ooh,
Yeah, that was kind of the gist of the conversation. And for me, that was incredibly insulting. Like, I am a girl's girl to the core. I truly value my female relationships. And so taking myself out of it, but thinking of like, my best friend, my sister, someone else sitting in that seat, what I would have wanted them to do would be leave, start your own thing. Those relationships you have will follow you. And that's what happened.
dang. Not only insulting, but like so triggering
Yeah.
to living in today's world and still be it's obviously we've come a little bit far, but that type of thing is still all over the place.
Oh, it is, and it's so prevalent in this industry because it's absolutely male
Yeah.
dominated. It is a male dominated space without doubt. So being me and who I am just as my personality, I feel like is so different. And I think a lot of the time like people haven't known what to do with me because I'm so different
I love
than the
it.
norm.
Nobody knows what to do with well-behaved women or yeah, with women that
Yeah.
aren't well-behaved, but you know what? You're always the ones that are going to achieve the most and have the most fulfilling life. So
Not well behaved.
you mentioned that it wasn't based on feeling or emotion that you were able to articulate your value and you were asking for a raise, but I think that this is something that actually a lot of people can take something away from. Can you talk about your approach to use data to and facts to articulate your value? Maybe you compared it to other numbers that you could get in the market or like comparative salaries, and then how you actually formulated your pitch to the boss to say
Yeah.
like I'm worth X and you're paying
Yeah.
me
So
Y.
in my role, there wasn't another person doing what I was doing in the industry. I was doing so many different roles. It was so intricate. So I couldn't actually go out and shop for a comparative salary. But what I had to do was look at the numbers of revenue that was coming in. I knew because I was operating at an HR level how much we were compensating people who were performing duties on each file. And then I also knew overhead. I knew what the rent was. I knew a lot of the employee cost. Payroll tax is a real thing. So there was a lot that went into that I'm like, you're still making X amount above and beyond all of the expenses. So it's not like I was just looking at a number and thinking like, well, we made you $20,000. I deserve half of it. It was truly analyzed from the top down to see what that bottom number would be.
Smart. So and how did that conversation go? Like how do you argue with the data?
Well, they were trying to grow and they were ultimately trying to hire a few other positions. So they wanted to essentially say that they wanted to budget to pay more people. Those people weren't there yet.
Mm,
And I was still doing all of the jobs that they were trying to ultimately hire to, have me delegate. And it it didn't make sense. I'm like, well, once they get here, certainly that's a conversation we can have. But if you're willing to pay them X while I'm doing that role right now, then shouldn't I be given a piece of that pie?
I mean, makes total sense. And then what was your thought process, or how did you know when it was time to leave?
The day I knew that it was time to leave, um, so my partner back then, she went and got her broker's license. So she had
Mhm.
the ability to do it. She was already operating in that type of role. I had a meeting with them where literally I was crying. I mean, early in my career, I feel like I cried a lot.
We all did. We all did.
I was crying. I made the most juvenile mistake. I transposed 2 numbers, and they acted like I had, like, completely demolished the business. And I'm like, "You know what? Like, of all the things that I do here and how undervalued I already am, like, you critiquing me for this super, super minuscule mistake that's actually not going to cause anyone any, pushback or revenue loss." It was like, I'm just gonna go where I'm valued, and I'm gonna go start this thing with my friend.
So it was just the feeling of not being valued
Right,
to the potential in which you knew you should be, and
right.
then also having confidence that you could go do it
Yeah,
again
and
and better.
yeah, and I knew that the relationships that I had made were going to follow me. They aren't working with a company because of the name, they're working with them because who you are, who the
Yep.
people are, who the players are.
I would love to hear more on your take about client relationships and just the importance of the relationships that you develop with people. And obviously, you've always been a relationship focused person, but now you've made that skill set into your career. And I'm sure you have tons of hot takes on how to approach relationships and being genuine and authentic and all of that. But can you just go off on that?
Yeah, I'll go up on it. So, I mean, even not even referral partner relationships, but truly just relationships in general are what I attribute every ounce of success I've had. I mean, even back, I keep going back to this, even being in the sorority with you, like I was so unrefined and just people like teaching me proper grammar and proper etiquette, things
Hmm.
that maybe are natural to some based on the environment they grew up in. It wasn't to me. And so having that continuous elevation based on the people I was surrounding myself with was truly instrumental in creating me to be the woman that I am. And relationships now, not all of them have been real estate specific. Some of them were board members that I have met and made connection with that have helped me elevate who I am and make introductions to other people who full circle have ended up supporting me in business somehow. But I mean, I truly think network is the absolute most important piece to elevating oneself.
So you are a natural in terms of a like conversation and approaching people and talking to people. But I think and why you chose the type of career that you have. Like obviously if you're somebody that just can't converse, you're not going to do what you do. But I do think that some people listening are curious if they do like to focus on relationships and relationships mean a lot to them and they can be authentic but they're shy or they don't have the confidence to approach somebody in a networking event or things like that. Do you have any tips that you might share to building confidence or just having like a couple go-to things to talk about that help in situations like that? Because I think it's about putting yourself out there and having the confidence to be vulnerable and authentic, but that's really hard.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. And being authentic, I think, is even really a challenge for a lot of people. It feels vulnerable
Mhm.
and scary.
Yeah.
And even though I am super outgoing and bubbly, I have anxiety and I can certainly speak to social anxiety. And social anxiety can sometimes make word vomit and things just kind of come out, which sometimes serves you and sometimes doesn't. I look back and reflect and I'm like, why did I say that? But
Yeah.
the reality is, and something I remind myself of often, people aren't really paying that much attention to you. They remember how you make them feel, but they don't always remember what you say. So when you are being vulnerable and authentic, like you're going to make these connections because you're going to bring the root of who you are to the conversation or to the situation. And people like that. People can connect with that. And if you're reserved or shy, it's not quite as connecting.
It's so true. You think about what you say so much more than anybody else is thinking about what you say. They just know if you were fun to hang out with or if you were kind, made them feel good, complimented them, whatever. They
Yeah.
remember the feeling, not
And
whatever you said.
and I think that's something I've always done. I was like complimenting because I'm an observer and I like love to compliment people. And that you're right is so connecting. So connecting.
So you, in my opinion, and I feel like I have a lot of opinions about you on this. They're all positive. Um,
Thank you.
you have always had a growth mindset, and I don't think that I had the vocabulary to identify that 15 years ago when we met. But
Mhm.
now I see that I can't actually imagine how hard it might have been for you in certain circumstances to grow up the way that you grew up, come to still another town in Virginia, but it was a private school full of a lot of people with a lot of money who came from very different backgrounds than you and had a
Mhm.
specific way. Their norm was just completely different. And looking back now, I noticed it in real time of like, she doesn't seem to care. She is just like gonna be herself. And I remember having thoughts of like, I'm so jealous because like I didn't grow up the way that you grew up, but I still didn't have the confidence in a room of people that I was probably more similar to that you had. And I loved that and admired that. And I think it's why you have such an infectious energy and behavior or in personality, like in just generally speaking. But where did the growth mindset come from? Do you feel like it came from necessity? Or was it that you genuinely just like love to absorb knowledge and get better and evolve? And I'd love your perspective on that.
Thank you. I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, I definitely felt like there was a level of just, again, that delusion where I was like, not really paying attention. I was like, oh, what is that bracelet, David? Your men, you all have that. Oh, that's $300. And to me at that time was like, wow, that's
Hmm.
like $1,000
Yeah.
to me now. And so I was like truly a little bit just delusional. I didn't understand how different I was. But then I also was there and I was in those rooms and I was doing those things and continuing to elevate even just academically because I knew I always wanted more. There
Yeah.
was multiple times in my childhood. I mean, I can remember vividly like the filings of bankruptcy and even just having to monitor what we were purchasing at the grocery store. And I knew that that wasn't the life that I was going to have. And I was damn determined that that wasn't going to be it for me. And it wasn't going to be it for the children that I had. And so, yeah, it's just like pure determination and also not really realizing who I was in the room I was in.
I love it. I mean, I feel like you have so many just tricks up your sleeve of how to navigate these situations that are new and like you haven't done before. I want to hear them all. Like, I'm trying to figure out what questions are going to pull them out of you. What is the secret? How do you walk into a room of a bunch of people that went to prep schools in high school and grew up in New England
Yeah.
and in an hour make them all love you? I just don't know most people could do that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I was like kind of funny and interesting to people. And I think that's another thing that made people a little bit more,
Yeah,
yeah, like they're like,
you're different.
what is this girl? Like, I remember puppy painting my blow dryer and going up to all the girls in DG, like, guess what I done last night? I puppy painted my blow dryer. They're all like, what are you?
Ugh, I just love it. You were just
No shame.
unapologetically yourself. Who
Yeah,
cares?
authentically me. And like, again, not even phased by it.
So you have accomplished a ton in your career, and you did have Tucker at a time that was a bit unexpected, I would imagine.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, and but you, like you said, you just were like, okay, I'm gonna keep doing it. I'm gonna have the baby, finish school, do the career thing, and just keep it moving, basically. But I am curious to hear how navigating your career through everything that comes with being a mom and a single mom at some point, that's a lot. And I know that there's many people that can relate to that, but what's your experience with that?
I think, and I'm sure you can speak to this too, balancing motherhood with being a professional is so challenging. They always talk about work-life balance. That's not real. Like
No.
there's no balance. Like you're constantly seesawing one towards more than the other. Like it's never going to be a perfect balance. At least it hasn't been in my
Yeah.
experience. And so it's really truly finding who needs you in the moment. My kids need me right now. So that's where all of the weight's going to go. I need to focus on business and production. So that's where my weight's going to go. And just really being truly aware of what and where you're needed. And I think that that's really the only way that it can be managed.
I'm just being okay with the fact that it isn't going to be balanced for any amount
You
of time.
have to be okay with it. And I can't tell you how many times that Tucker's even pointed that out to me. He's like, you work a lot. Or he's asked me to, can we not have a phone conversation in the car today? I want you to talk to me about something. Like, he's very aware, which helps me stay in touch with him too. But I can't tell you, I mean, there's so many times that I've picked him up from school and immediately I'm on the phone with either a client or an agent, and he knows like I be quiet during this time.
Sounds like he's a good communicator though, and tells
He's a
you what he
communicator.
needs.
He does. He's very emotionally aware, which I am so happy about.
That's incredible. My son is a lot younger than Gray, my son Gray is younger than Tucker, but I do think about the fact that I love that he is going to grow up seeing his mom work and have a big career and be
Yeah.
successful, because I feel like it's something one day he'll be proud of and want to brag about. Like, my
Oh
mom's
my
a
gosh.
badass.
Totally. This is a funny story. Tucker goes to a friend's house and he sees open house signs in the family's garage. So he's smart enough to put together that this parent is a real estate agent. So then he goes and pitches my business to her.
Stop.
Yeah. He's like, you should really work with my mom.
That a boy.
I know.
That a boy.
He's so
Aw.
proud and he's such a champion and cheerleader for me. It's awesome.
That's so great. I love that.
Yeah. It's so cute.
Do you feel like there are things that you would have done differently, or things you maybe not that you've done differently, but things you wish you knew when you were starting your career that you know now?
I think in starting my career, I tried to hold on to a lot of relationships that weren't serving me.
Mm,
And there's all these sayings like, it's lonely at the top and you're a product of who you spend your time with. And I really didn't realize how true that was. If
yeah.
you're looking around and seeing that maybe I don't want to be like all these people in my circle, you don't have the circle for you. And it's not that you have to hate them or not be their friend anymore, but you have to kind of let go in order to grow. And I had a really hard time with that at the beginning of my career, like really wanting to hold on to relationships that weren't growth minded. They weren't elevating and changing. They were kind of stagnant or even maybe a little bit, what's the word for it? They were just
Like,
regressing
yeah,
in what they were doing.
holding you back in some ways, even just
Totally.
if it was emotionally, like
Yeah. I
having,
mean,
yeah,
it can absolutely be emotionally. I saw on, we like to say I read an article, but I saw a TikTok. That was talking about being the product of the people you spend time with. But in actuality, you're more like the least producing person in the group, like the lowest caliber. That's where you revert to. And so it's really challenging because it's not just friends or relationships, or it can be family that can be holding you back if you're allowing too much of their energy to really kind of penetrate into your life.
it's so true. There's some saying about that being true with parents too, like you're only as happy as your most unhappy child. It's that same thing,
Yeah,
except for like as translated to your friend group or the people that you hang out with respect to energy and growth mindset and accomplishments and all
absolutely.
of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely experienced that in my life.
So, can you share a little bit about how you navigated the deal or agreement, whatever you want to call it, with your now partner to become equal partners in this firm? Because
Yeah.
I don't even know how to begin thinking about something like that.
So like I said, it was really valuable for me to leave him because for him, he'd always been the branch manager. He'd always been like kind of the guy in charge. And I was still producing at a really high level when the rest of the market was tanking.
Mhm.
And leaving during that time and him having to come in and see actually how hard that was to produce at that level, and me leaving him and releasing his role as mentor to me, releasing him as someone to bounce things off of that I truly valued and respected, I think brought us both to like, okay, we're here. We're meant to be together. We're meant to do this together. So whenever I engaged in conversation with him to start this, it was kind of like, I'll come back because I know you need me. You know I need you, but here's how we're going to do this, because it's not something that I feel like I can just be in an employee role for anymore. Sadly, that's probably not the case for everyone, that they have the opportunity to leave and then come back as partner, but it was necessary in my situation.
And you, again, just had the confidence to be like, here's the deal and here's how we're going to do it. And I'm only coming back if I'm a partner.
Well, so I'll tell you, talk about network. I have an incredible financial planner who kind of serves in like a life coach role and all kinds of other things as well. and she helped me. So it was a group effort with her
Okay.
to try and come to some sort of agreement that would make sense. Because, I mean, in this type of role, you can go company to company and get signing bonus after signing bonus, and then you're married to them for a certain amount of time. But foregoing that to go in and actually pay money, because I paid in to be a partner, was certainly a risk. But even in the month that we've had, that's revenue coming back to me already that I paid in. So it's been incredibly successful.
That's really impressive.
Thank
So,
you.
being an expert in the market and being able to guide people on how to make smart decisions with the biggest investment most people make, do you have an outlook or tips that you can share for this audience, which is mostly women in their 20s, 30s that maybe haven't purchased a first home yet, but know that they want to? And I think there's just so much information out there. Is this a good time? Is this a bad time? What do they need to know?
Oh my gosh, there's so many complexities to home purchasing and home financing. It should absolutely be taught in high school. It is
I agree.
incredibly, it's incredibly just not known in the everyday average American's
Yeah.
skill set. So to me, there's no denying that we're in an affordability crisis. For
Yeah.
a single home purchaser, it's challenging to purchase a home by oneself. And a predominant part of my business is single women as home purchasers. So to me, I think the most important thing that anyone can do is create a partnership with a great local real estate agent who serves the community that they're in and a local lender who has expertise in actually working with single home purchasers to create strategic plans. Because sometimes people come in, they're already ready and we're good to go. And we just have to kind of review numbers and make sure that everything fits into their budget appropriately. But sometimes they're a year plus off. I've had
Yeah.
multiple people come to me that have actually had to create a strategic plan with their agent partner and with their lender in order to obtain homeownership because there are things that happen on both sides. There's seller concession that can help buy down interest rates to create more affordability. And then on the lender side, maybe it's a credit challenge. Maybe they need to change jobs. I mean, I've literally had clients that have had to get different jobs in order to reach their goals of financial freedom, hopefully one day by creating an investment portfolio in housing.
I honestly didn't even know that that was something that a lender would do with you, create a strategic plan to get you there. I kind of thought that
Oh,
lenders
yeah.
only wanted to talk to you if you were already there.
No. Oh my gosh. I like to talk to people well before they're ready to purchase because there are things to do. Even someone who has, let's say, a 720 credit score, that's a great credit score. But you're going to receive incentives and reduction in mortgage insurance if you're not putting 20% down in a reduced rate if we get you higher. And there's really simple ways to do that by paying a little bit down on your credit cards to increase your credit score by lowering credit utilization. There's simple things that go into that are strategic. It's not just like check boxes, check boxes. Here's your jet income. You have money for down payment. Let's go. It needs to be more of a well thought out process.
Okay, so let's summarize that in like a couple steps or just summarize the tips. If you're somebody that is a single home buyer for the first
Mhm.
time, where do you start and what are the steps you should go through in making sure you're working with the right people and buying at the right time and getting a good deal?
Absolutely. So most people go to real estate agents first. It's the more shiny, fun object. You find your real estate agent. You can go to lenders first. And actually, that should probably be the way that the process works. So you find who you want to work with locally. I think that there's a great resource in social media by seeing who's active and present in your area. You can literally look on tags and hashtags and things like that to find them. Or you can see who's producing at a high level just by looking at open house signs, to be honest with you, or getting a referral from a friend. So find
Mhm.
those professionals, make sure you're working with a strong partnership. Because those of us who work together, I mean, not even just me, but my affiliates in the mortgage industry, they're partners too. We collaborate in a way when we have experience in working together that best serves the client. There's no
Yeah,
kickbacks. There's no reason to fear that. It's truly in the client's best interest to work with a partnership. From there, having the lender do a full analysis with a full application of, we can do soft credit pulls and those are just fine, but the credit analyst as well. We need to make sure we go through all of that to create the plan because credit's such an important piece. Submit all your documents, and then between the two, we create a structured plan for the buyer.
that's awesome. That I think is a lot less intimidating than the way most people think about it. Like, oh, I
Yeah.
just have to have a ton of money before I can even reach out to anybody because
No.
nobody's going to want to talk to me if not.
There's so many programs for folks to have low down payment housing options. It's insane. Truly, there's so many grants, there's so many government incentives and things that people just are unaware of. And
Yeah,
honestly, it's not something that I trust Google for. So I don't actually trust clients to ask Google these things because there's so much misinformation. But talking to a true professional, that's the route to go.
makes total sense. So, do you have any anti gatekeeping advice for someone, maybe not somebody that is going to follow your exact path, but just wants to become an equal partner in something or wants to start something of their own and they haven't taken that leap yet and they're working for somebody else at the moment?
Yeah. My advice is to soak up as much as you possibly can in whatever arena you're in. I mean, I started literally at the front desk of a mortgage company and worked through the process. And I think in doing that, not saying everyone needs to start as a front desk position because that's not true, but learning all of the aspects and the inner workings of an organization before you actually decide that you want to create one of your own is incredibly
Hmm.
important. It's almost dang near impossible to hire someone to do a role that you know nothing about. And they're probably not going to respect you if you don't know, what they're doing either. So that to me is probably the biggest thing for someone who wants to become an entrepreneur is in an industry now that is similar to what they would want to open.
That's really good advice. So true. Where can everybody find you on social, connect with you, work with you if they're in your local area? Or can you work with people anywhere?
I can work with anyone in Arizona, soon to be California. I am thinking about doing North Carolina, Virginia, but that's not live yet. So
Okay, well, let me
um
know if you decide on Florida because there's lots of homes to be slung in Florida, that's for sure.
okay. So I have a really great connection in Florida I should introduce you to. But you can find me on Instagram, Courtney B. Crowder. And then I actually have a lot of my initial conversations with folks on the phone, and I still have my Virginia area code. So I'm 276-733-3591.
Love it. Thank you so much for your time. This was wonderful.
Thank you, Kara.
Are you somebody that loves to listen to podcasts, learn, and consume knowledge in general? But maybe you find the process of picking those episodes that are really value packed and worth your time challenging? Am I right? You're busy. I get it. If that's the case, the Pod Squad is for you. Every Tuesday, Haley and I are dropping in your inbox the absolute best listens for personal development and business podcasts for the week. We will even give you the Cliff Notes version so that you can still apply the takeaways and consume the knowledge quickly, even if you don't have time to listen to them all. To get the rec sent to you, just go to getgateless.com/subscribe or click the link in the show notes and enter your email address. And that's all you have to do. You will look forward to this every single week, and it will just be your listening cue until the following Tuesday. I hope you enjoy.